Welcome to Bahal Recap. Today we are reviewing 2002 thriller movie named The Secretary. Please subscribe the channel and like the video. Let's get started. A girl named Lise suffers from mental problems, and today she was discharged from the hospital. Her illness prompts her to try to hurt herself in all possible ways, using sharp objects and other tools, while the doctors fail to cure her in any way. Back at her parents' house, Lise sets out to look for a job to earn money and be useful. The girl is unable to do anything, and she has no qualifications. But later she discovers that she is very good and quick at typing on a typewriter. One evening, she finds a job advertisement in the newspaper in which a local lawyer is looking for a secretary. She then calls the office and an appointment is made. That night she recites in front of her mirror what she will say at the job interview, as she feels very nervous as it is her first time. The next day the girl arrives at the office and discovers that there is a lot of chaos. Everyone ignores her, and no one cares when she claims she came for the job interview. She then goes on alone and enters the office of the lawyer, Edward Gray, who begins to ask her personal questions. Some questions are very strange, such as if the girl would like to have children, if she has sisters, where she lives, and if she has a boyfriend. Edward exhibits very strange behavior, and it seems that he too suffers from some mental problem as well. The girl does not react in any way to this, so the man warns her that the secretary's job is very boring and repetitive, since she will mainly have to send letters to potential customers. As a first task, Gray asks her to make him a cup of tea, but the girl panics and she is not even able to do such a simple task. The next few days are very difficult for Lee, as she does not find time to do all the tasks she is assigned. After a while, the girl starts to show signs of a nervous breakdown. Soon after, Lee bumps into an old school friend. Nostalgic feelings lead them to drink together. Edward, coincidentally passing by, observes them secretly. The following day, driven by jealousy, Edward's behavior towards the girl becomes aggressive. He criticizes her for grammatical mistakes in letters to clients. Under constant stress and pressure, Lee starts making these errors more frequently. After yet another error-filled letter, Edward loses patience and summons the girl to his office. There he instructs her to bend over the desk and read her letter with mistakes. To her surprise, each mistake she notes, he responds by slapping her buttocks. He tells her to keep reading, which she does reluctantly. Edward's slaps grow harsher, but Lee appears to enjoy it. Following this peculiar encounter, Edward returns to his desk calmly and dismisses her to resume her work. The next day, Lee makes more grammatical errors, but this time it is clear that she did it on purpose just to be punished again by Edward. We are shown scenes where Gray slaps her in her office. He ties her hands to a rod. He puts her on a saddle and forces her to pretend to be a dog, crawling on all fours to bring him documents. In the evening, the girl reads a magazine that teaches women special ways to seduce successful men. Leigh falls asleep thinking of her boss, and at night she dreams of making love with him in romantic places. Apparently, the girl fell in love with Gray. The next morning, she deliberately makes a mistake in a letter, in a way that Gray punishes her again. Afterward, she tries hard to hint at him about her wishes, but Edward is busy with work and can't give her time. Today, for some reason, he is very cold to her, even pretending to talk to her on the phone to ignore her. The girl finishes her shift and goes to the hospital where her sick father is. Lee, sad and depressed by what happened, heads to Gray's house to find comfort. She knocks on the man's door but freezes when she sees him in front of her. Stammering, she makes up a work excuse. And Edward replies that they will face him tomorrow in the office because this is her house, and he doesn't want to be disturbed during non-working hours, and he proceeds to shut the door in her face. In the following days, Gray stops caring about the girl and no longer punishes her for her mistakes. He even throws all the red markers he used to circle mistakes in her letters in the trash. Lee tries countless ways to get her boss's attention back, but he continues to ignore her for no apparent reason. The girl decides to do it all by herself and proceeds to slap herself with a toy. But unfortunately, she doesn't get the same pleasure she received with him. In reality, it turns out that Edward hasn't gotten tired of her at all. He is simply trying in every way to suppress all of her secret desires within himself. Tired of chasing her boss, Lee decides to repeat past experiences with her former classmate. However, the boy is too soft towards her, and he doesn't have the courage to slap her hard for fear of hurting her. The girl then remains dissatisfied with the relationship. The next day, the girl decides to act once and for all. She proceeds to put a huge worm in the letter she gives to Edward, who at this point can no longer hold back her emotions and orders the girl to come to her office. Lee bends over the desk and waits for punishment with a satisfied face. The man asks her to take off her skirt and underwear. She obeys. However, the man does not dare to touch her, but only proceeds to manual work. After that, he goes back to his desk and asks her to make him a sandwich. Litsat goes away. After that, Gray collects all the girl's photos and her letters with her mistakes, and then he proceeds to burn them in the backyard. The next morning, he brings the girl to her office and asks her the same questions as in the interview at the beginning of the film. Although the girl replies the same things as the first time, the man claims that she is not valid for this job. He reminds her of all the mistakes she made at her job, and then fires her. Lee reveals to the man that she would like to get to know him better outside of work. But the man yells at her that he hired her only because of her strange fantasies about her. He then asks her to leave and no longer try to meet him. Lee collects his things and walks out. In the courtyard, she stops, and she starts crying with a broken heart. At home, she doesn't tell anyone she's been fired, and she just pretends every morning to go to work as usual. While spying on Edward's office, she sees that another woman has replaced her as his secretary. Lee attempts to date men who exhibit Edward's traits, but fails because some are too ordinary, while others are excessively strange. Eventually, she agrees to marry an old classmate. Yet on the wedding day, she flees to Gray's office. She boldly confesses to him, but he doubts her sincerity. She persists, affirming her deep love for him. Gray requests that she prove her love to him, placing her hands on the desk to wait for his return. Night comes, but Lee is still sitting in the same position. Meanwhile, Gray spies on her secretly from the window and thinks about her feelings for a long time. The man calls the office, and when the girl answers her call, picking up the phone with her teeth, Edward realizes that the girl will obey any of her orders. While the man continues to spy on her, Lee's former classmate arrives in her office. The boy tries to take her home by force, but the girl rebels and gets angry. Even hitting the boy, she was about to marry her in order to follow Gray's orders. Calmly, she tells the boy that she never wants to see him again, and asks to leave her alone. A few days pass, but Lee continues to remain in the same position without food and water. A lot of friends and relatives try to make her think, but the girl doesn't listen to anyone. Gray eventually realizes he loves his vaulted girl, and he returns to the office, which is now surrounded by reporters and a crowd of civilians. Edward enters her office. He gives the girl a drink. He picks her up and takes her back to her house, where the two make love. After some time, the two get married and still continue to play their weird games, with the wife finding the weirdest ways to anger her husband and receive her punishment.